Kia ora, I'm Erin J. Doyle. Welcome to my channel. This video is not going to be particularly coherent, I suspect, because I actually sat down to film something completely different and it just took take after take after take. Like, I kept on tripping over my tongue or losing my train of thought like really early on, so it was going to be hard to edit out, and the chaos. And then I finally kind of got into my stride and realised that I was still actually being quite chaotic, and that particular video requires a bit more of a methodical, like, heading key bullet points kind of approach, not just kind of a bleh, word vomit enjoy kind of approach. So I thought I would stop tormenting myself with trying to use more brain cells than I clearly have available, and do something that's a little bit more brain vomit friendly. That's what I wanted to say. Is that good enough? So, a rating update. That seems like something that my brain can possibly pull off in its current state. So, I attempted to do Camp NaNo, and it was not as successful as I'd hoped. I had hoped to edit the entirety of the physical printout of the book, but I went into that expecting it to be not much more than a line edit, or actually less than a line edit. Originally I thought it was going to be a proofread. When I printed this, I was thinking I'll be looking for stray comments. I think by the time Camp NaNo started, I had realised that I'd be doing more line edity stuff, but the further I have got into this, the more stuff I've noticed that could be improved. It's not like screaming nightmare, what is this nonsense bad. I think it is fully readable as it is, but I think possibly because I significantly changed the main character's internal journey and the nature of what they have to go through, because I made those changes relatively late in the writing process, like several drafts into it, I think there's less exploration of sort of her thought process than there could be. Part of this, I think, is because the character is by herself for big stretches of time, and I don't want to bog the reader down with too much like introspection or self-talk. So I think between not having had that arc involved to begin with and then not wanting a whole bunch of introspective blah blah, I was trying to kind of walk a fine line with, you know, how to get the information in, and I think I was too light-handed. I think at the moment as I'm reading this, I'm like, you know, she kind of jumps from, you know, feeling this way about something to feeling that way about it really easily, and there are external events happening that are influencing that, but we don't really see the character you know, kind of internalizing those external experiences, if that makes any sense. So I think that's something that can be improved to make the story flow better and for some of the characters' growth to seem more smooth instead of coming in big bursts like it does now. Like I said, I think it is generally readable, but I think it could be better. So we have tabs. I don't know if you can see that actually. We have tabs. So all the pink ones are for consistency checks, so that's actually most of these, that's not too bad. And the blue ones are things, is that even focusing? The blue ones are things which have to be perhaps mentioned earlier in the book. So they're not huge things. But then we also have all of these post-its that I've put inside the cover, which are bigger. Trying to think of a good example I can use. Okay, so it's some of the stuff are things which I've realised as part of the character's internal journey. I need to perhaps have this character having a certain discussion. That discussion happens absolutely nowhere in the book, and I don't know where I want it to be. I've just decided that it has to happen, so for now I've just put it on a post-it inside the little plastic protective cover, so I see that post-it every time I look at this, but it's not sort of tucked away at a specific location yet because I don't know where that location's going to be. But hopefully this way I don't forget to do something about it. So obviously with all of that going on, I wasn't able to finish. So I got up to page 187, which is just before the beginning of chapter 25. So, I mean, approximately halfway, which I think is still pretty good progress. Obviously it's not as far as we wanted, but it's not bad. I think I could have done more. I did really peter out towards the end of the month, but it turned out to be a relatively dramatic month at work. Right at the beginning of Camp NaNo, my line manager announced that he was resigning, and this led to a massive upheaval and changes in who I'm reporting to, and that meant sudden changes to my deadlines and things because new line manager and old line manager have different priorities. And so things which my previous line manager was like, oh, you know, get around to it when you can, this stuff's more important. My new line manager's like, get this stuff done. And I'm like, oh! So there was a little bit of an upheaval there. Nothing like super dramatic, but it was enough to kind of cause a significant change in how I was doing things and how I was prioritizing things. So that was quite stressful. And I feel like something else happened. What else happened? Something. Clearly not something worth remembering for more than a few weeks. So anyway, I had, yeah, this professional upheaval plus the manuscript needing more work than I anticipated. So I didn't reach my goal, but you know, neither of those things are disastrous. It's all fine. However, in amongst all of this, I have developed a new idea for a new book. I made a couple of major decisions, obviously about this one, but also about another book that I'm not currently working on. Some of you may be familiar that I've been working on a vampire epic for years. I've actually written the first book several times, or made efforts to write the first book, I should say. So I did a draft, which at the time was the best I could do. Now I look at it, I'm like, oh god, so embarrassing, why do I let other people see that? But I did write the first book, and when I came back to it and I was trying to make it better, I realised that it actually couldn't be the first book, and it had to be later in a series where certain things were already well established, because trying to have them as pre-existing things in the book I wanted to write was too confusing for my readers, because what I found when I brought the book to like critique partners was that because I was trying to write a vampire story that didn't follow the path of every other vampire story that has ever been written, it was really hard to get them to kind of just suspend disbelief and dive into the story because of all of the sort of pre-existing assumptions about vampire literature. So I decided that I needed to write a book that came before the book I actually wanted to write, and this book was going to be set earlier in time, and it was going to lay out how all of the things that already existed when this book came along came to be. So this eventually led to me planning out to write a reasonably large number of books. I think at one point I was thinking like 9 to 12 books. And then the issues continued a little bit. There were a few little problems that I had, like how was I going to get this to work if this character was doing this kind of difficulties, because it was such a big series. Anyway, This has been the problem with this series for years, and it was getting to be such a big challenge that I put the project completely on ice and moved on to work on my Camino story. So, I mean, you guys know I was writing the Camino story when I started this channel, so obviously the vampire story has been on ice for a long time. I pick it up and look at it occasionally, but I haven't actually actively written on it in 3+ years. However, in the last month, I had a realization. I realized that the planned book one, not the original book one that I actually wanted to write as just one book, but like the new book one that was going to establish all the world building-y stuff, I realized that in order to fix some of the other things, I could basically throw out a big chunk of that book, and instead of having it be looking at 3 separate characters living in 3 different time periods, I could just write about the youngest of those 3 characters, which would be much easier. That's the thought I had, and I think I'm quite happy with that idea. So I've done that. I feel like there's another project I had an epiphany on, but now I can't remember what it was, and I'm hoping I wrote it down in my journal over there in the corner. If I didn't, it's gone forever. All in all, it's not been the most thrilling or successful or impressive few weeks. However, I don't know if I mentioned, I was also sick. So I've been sick. I've got work stress, contemporary work stress, as well as anticipation for future work stress as we go through restructuring. I need to, I think, make my passion and my pastime not stressful. So whilst I do intend to keep working on this, I'm still very excited to see it done. I think I need to be a bit gentle with myself. So I'm also going to be spending some time doing some stuff that's not the, hard concentration editing work, but is more the just playing around, having fun ideas work. So I'm going to be writing some poetry and playing around with an idea I have for a children's picture book. And I am not going to set any hard deadlines for that, or even soft deadlines. I'm just gonna do some stuff that hopefully will keep my stress levels down, so I can deal with the stuff that I can't take easy and abolish the deadlines for and that kind of thing. So yeah, I realise this doesn't necessarily fit in with the usual like AuthorTube vibe of setting deadlines and doing challenges and stuff, but like I think I'm just not in a place where I can do that right now, so I'm not going to try and force myself just for views or whatever. So yeah, that's where I'm up to, and it might just be treading water, but that's fine. Drowning bad. So I'm going to go and tread some water, I guess. I'm going to also abandon that metaphor now. If you liked this video, maybe consider giving it a like. Let me know what you're up to down below. And if you haven't previously, perhaps consider hitting subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Bye.